Thank you very much to Dr. Mao Tang for elaborating sort of the perspective of this Chinese 5-year plan in regards to today's topic. And in regards to today's topic, let me once again just say that we're very thrilled to have so many people joining us both online through our Zoom webinar platform, but also offline today here as we're seated in Beijing. And here in Beijing, I'm happy to say that there is a lot of new faces for me today, but I'm also happy to see a lot of familiar faces. And the next presenter today is one of those familiar faces. So let's welcome Mr. Chang, who is the chair of Environment Work Group at the European Union Chamber of Commerce in China. So let's see here. Let's go.
Thank you. For Nicholas, it's a familiar face because we are actually sitting in the same big office. So we almost meet every day. That's how familiar we are. It's a great pleasure to be here and listen to all the exchanges, from the government and policy side. Actually, I realized we had a meeting also with the MEE this morning. There is a dialogue between EU and China on the environment issues, and there are special projects on water and wastewater. With MIT, they are on energy efficiency and resource utilization. And in addition to that, with, for example, NDRC, there are also EU-China cooperation on the circular economy, right? So on the government side and policy side, there's a lot of exchange and dialogues. I'm coming actually more from the business side. Here, I'm going to talk about or share a little bit experience about the business issue. So maybe it's not so positive in a way. But starting with this, I think doing business in China is a general big topic for many, many years. Right? And I just quote here that, the old good times of China faster development, double-digit GDP, that has been the past, right? So we are now in the new normal. And in the new norm, that's for the foreign companies, the European companies coming into the Chinese market. Some of us have been here for some years. Some of the companies may be very new to the market, but here we find out that here we'll face competitions from both our international competitors and our domestic colleagues, right? And we have the rising labor cost, and as I said before, a bit slowdown in the economy. So the old good days is not there anymore. But on the other hand, we see that China is the only country as China, and that you won't be able to find another China in our lifetime. So with that, basically when you come to China, doing business here, we have this slogan, made in China for China, or doing business in China for China. If I go directly into the issues we have experienced or faced in our daily business activities, I kind of summarized into a number of issues here. First of all, as we all probably can agree that green or circular economy is policy driven. And it's most of the case, it started with the business to government, right? The government, municipalities or different departments, in most cases will start as your customers in a way. And right now, public-private partnership is a preferred model in most of the utility related projects in China. That actually means in many cases, in projects, the favor will be given to a bit larger scale companies. In many cases, it's also state-owned companies in China. This is the fact, right? As a European SME coming to China, you probably have to make your own decision, right? The company I work for, Tomra, we are actually a medium-sized company. We have around 4,000 people around the globe. But in China, we are also a small company. We have around 300 people here. Many times we have been asked or challenged that, there is a business opportunity. Do we want to invest, operate it? As for our normal business, we are a technical equipment supplier. So we basically want to sell the equipment to the clients. But we also experience that, when we are trying to promote the green development and the circular economy business model, the local government will say, okay, this is such a nice idea. Why not you invest and do it, right? And we will have government procurement of your service or products, for over the years. This sometimes can be very attractive, but I mean, there is no wrong and right in this. Each company maybe have to make their own decisions. Do you have the financial support, good enough to support that business model? Do you have the confidence to operate a plant? For my company, we made a lot of challenges to ourselves, and we decided we remain as an equipment supplier. So we find a customer who want to invest and operate. For some companies, maybe they can choose to be the investor and operator rather than only sell the solutions or the equipment. If I come to the next one, as I said, also many cases we find that for the same subject, in Europe, in most cases you deal with the Ministry of the Environment, a Department of Environment in the city. But in China, sometimes you have to deal with many different departments. I come from now in the solid waste recycling business areas, and we are talking about with MEE, for example, on the no waste, zero waste cities. However, in many daily projects or business, we find out we have to deal with not only the Department of Environment and Ecology in the city. For the general recyclables, we have to deal with the Department of Commerce. For the clean production and industrial waste during the production, that's the local Department of Information and IT. For the general circular economy, NDRC, local PDRC, that's the one you have to deal with. And if we talk about municipal solid waste, that goes to the Ministry of Housing and Urban Rural Development. Sometimes in the city, it's called the Department of Gardening or Sanitation. Right? So actually, the picture here illustrates that if you look at the city, different type of waste, it's actually managed by different ministries or departments. Sometimes you find the conflict of interest between the departments, and how you coordinate this. It's actually some challenges we are facing quite often. I have a personal experience just recently in one of the cities. We are talking about the so-called low-value recyclables. That means plastic bags, Tetra packs, glasses. And when we tried to reach the project, and we went to the local sanitation department. At the beginning, they are very cooperative. We had the discussions. They are trying to make a directory of the list of things can be included in the low-value recyclables. But then, a little bit later, when the local Department of Commerce want to, revitalize their, collection and recycling system for the recyclables, and then there comes to a challenge, because for the Commerce Department, all these plastic bags, low values, that came from the waste, municipal solid waste, so it's not in their system. But for the sanitation department now, they say, okay, since you are looking at upgrading your collection and recycling system for the recyclables, even though these are the low value recyclables, but they are still recyclable. So now it should be in the hands of commercial department. So who's going to make the final decision? Because they report to different vice mayors. And then we are kind of starting there, what to do. I think sometimes, this kind of things happens in different cities, in different ministries. So that's also a challenge. We need to prepare ourselves. Then another thing, if we talk about circular economy, I think per European definition, we want to keep the material or resource in the loop as long as possible, as high value as possible. Unfortunately, in China, if we take, for example, a plastic bottle, beverage bottle, for example, the collection for recycling rate in China is quite high. We estimate it's more than 80%. Some estimation is even more than 90%. So it's very high. But if we look more into that, PET bottles has been collected and then being reprocessed into fibers, which is also good. It gives it a second life. But if some of them, I think it has a chance to go back even to the bottles. We see this a lot in EU. There are 10 countries in Europe that have a deposit system, then they can go bottle to bottle recycling. And the list of countries in Europe going on this is expanding, right? However, in China, I think sometimes we have officials being satisfied with, let's say, downgrade recycling, not closed loop. So this is also create a challenge for European business because in a way, we kind of came from the European market. We can make these things better, but if there's not a demand for that, then it's not a market for the European technology, especially for SMEs. So this is also a challenge I think many companies are facing. Then of course, here when you come to China, as I mentioned before, you not only meet all your international friends, you also have a lot of local friends. And sometimes we find our customers, they can be satisfied with a little bit lower performance together with much lower price. And for European companies or European technologies, in many cases, we aim for high performance. However, it also often comes with a little bit high price. But, the price is only the purchasing price or purchasing cost. In many cases, when you have a better technology or more durable technology, it's cost a little bit more when you start at the beginning, but it lasts longer, have a better performance, more stable performance. Then it's actually, if you look at the lifetime cost, it's better. But in most of the procurement contracts, the competition is only on the purchasing price, which also create the difficulties for European companies and especially for the SMEs. And also personally, I experienced myself that I remember like 10 years ago, European technology will always be regarded as more advanced technology. However, I think with the development, fast development in China, this is not the case anymore. I think in many cases, Chinese companies, they are actually doing better, but still, how do you position yourself, right? For example, in the online takeout food business, China, I think, is the #1 in the world. Even the US cannot compete with that. There's a lot of business and technology in that. That means, the Chinese company is taking the lead. But in a bit of the more traditional business areas, I think the European company still comes with a lot of know-how and experience that could contribute to the green development in China, and that in a way should be appreciated. But this also, I think there's always a good saying that global, right? You are a global company, but here in China, you have to also act locally. So how do you get adapted to the local needs and the local market? Sometimes, if the local needs is they only need a low price, a bit lower performance, would you adapt your technology solution to fit for that need? That's also a question by each company have to make. Local decisions, when you have people in China, understand the market needs. If the reporting line has to go all the way to the Asia headquarters, then to the global headquarters, sometimes takes a little bit too long time, and the market will not wait for you. So some can use shorten the decision making process, right? And can you grab the market? Another thing is sometimes as the European companies coming to China, when we are reporting to our global headquarters, we report the growth in the Chinese market. This year we have sales of, for example, 1 million RMB, and next year we want to get to 1.2 or 1.5. Right? However, I think that for many European companies, you also need to look at the market growth in general in China. Giving one example, in some areas, foreign companies will experience 5% to 10% annual growth, which seems to be good. However, if you look at the Chinese market, sometimes it's doubling every year. That means if you maintain only 10% growth, you are losing market share in China. And that is actually not a good thing. And for the companies, you should also be aware of that and be prepared for that. So then the last thing is we see a lot of things, should that be manually done, or should that be more automation, right? In the solid waste sector, in the recycling business, we see a lot of manual picking. That's in a way because the labor cost still relatively low, and many times it's more distributed. It doesn't get enough volume, so it's difficult to consolidate and go to automation for large scale. That is also a situation for the European technologies. Most of the case we are more useful when the volume is big and the speed is high. If you can handle big volume in a shortened time, with high performance or stable performance. That's what the European technologies normally have advantages. So also for the companies want to come to China, it's also need to find if there's a niche market for your technology. And here I just list a little bit a list of don'ts. That some of them are personal experience also. For example, the number 3, don't bet only on the relationship or guanxi. When doing business in China, our company has been here for 10 years. Almost every month, there are someone coming to us, say we have this personal relationship with mayors, governors, ministers. Can we do something? And I think 99.9% they are kind of try to cheat, right? So I think this more like on the table dialogue and exchange are more useful than anything at the table. And sometimes we also been requested of being taken to a local industry park. It's that if you set up a production here, then we give you a business in our city. And I think that sometimes seems to be attractive, but if you look more into that, it also can be very risky. And as most of the medium SME companies from Europe, they cannot set up productions anywhere in all the cities in China. And so you usually need to find where you build your base and then develop your business from there. I think for the rest of them, most of them are kind of like a common sense. And the last one I want to focus also is don't be too Western. This is a kind of a reminder for our European business colleagues coming to China. China is, I think right now, China has a lot of self-confidence. So they want to have an open and fair dialogue with European business on technologies, on business models, on financials. So it's not that we came from Europe, we are better, and we come to teach you anything. I think it's more equal discussions and cooperations now. Just a little bit about the company I work for. Tomra is headquartered in Norway. Our business units, one of the business units is actually 2 of them, mining and recycling, are based in Germany. Food sorting is based in Belgium, and our reverse vending machine is also in Oslo, together with the group headquarters. We are a member of the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, so we have an ambition to raise $1.5 billion to fight on the plastic pollution problems globally, and the focus will be mostly on the Southeast Asia, and I think China is also one of the areas we are working on. We have been in China for 10 years. We have our main headquarters in Xiamen. That's our R&D local testing center. We have a small assembling workshop where we purchase raw materials and components from China. We assemble them into parts and send it to Norway for our final RVM assembly. We also acquired a New Zealand company called Compact, which has a production assembly line in Kunshan. So we also take over the Kunshan plant. This is for our food sorting business. And we have 2 joint ventures in China. One is actually in Beijing. We are working with a Chinese company called Income Recycling. So they own the only rPET plant which can go to food contact material purpose. And also they own the bottle loop business. Sarah here will join in the discussion. So that's pretty much what I want to share and to share with the audience today. Thank you.